Good evening, everyone, and welcome to this webinar between the South African Institute of Mining Metallurgy and MISA, which is the Manufacturing Enterprises Solutions Association. I'm not going to do any introductions of the speakers this evening because I'm going to hand over to my colleague from MISA, Nick Steed, who will do an introduction shortly. As part of the SIMM's vision and platform of driving collaboration and knowledge sharing for our members in the broader mining industry, we collaborate with many institutions and associations, and one of them is MISA. And there's a lot of learnings from MISA that we can transfer to their members, to our members, and likewise back. Any business that is looking at a complex value chain, whether it's manufacturing an item or whether it's mining, is very, very similar. And there's some fundamental lessons that can be transferred and learned. So we're looking forward to further collaborations with MISA and looking at how we can learn some more do's and don'ts. Tonight's topic is called Stakes and Ladders. I almost said snakes and ladders, but Nick will explain why it's called Stakes and Ladders. And I'm going to now hand over to Nick Steed. Thank you very much. Over to you, Nick.
Thank you very much, Gary. It's a great pleasure to be part of this first joint venture in terms of actually sharing a little bit of our knowledge. Stakes and Ladders really was a case of, actually I read an article about a couple of weeks ago regarding how we as businesses tend to go with the easy flow of things, and the stakes and ladders is really, we have high stakes, but sometimes we don't learn from our mistakes. So hopefully today we will share some of the things that are happening in our organization and learn something that we can share across our mining and manufacturing to help us actually make our businesses better. And really, hopefully this is the start of something new and different for both of our organizations. Anyhow, enough of the small talk. I'm going to introduce Daniel Spies, our chairman, and I just want to give a quick bio of Daniel. Daniel has over 30 years of experience spanning a wide range of business and ICT fields. He has worked for a number of leading companies in both management, project and consulting roles in diverse areas, which include business development and strategy, IT architecture and research, solution development and deployment, customer relationship management, and operations management. Daniel holds academic qualifications in science, psychology, and business management. And Daniel serves as a director on the board of a number of companies and is also the chairman of MISA Africa. Daniel is passionate about integrating people, processes, and technology to achieve business success and meaningful returns. So, Daniel, over to you to give a bit of background to MISA Africa and MISA.
Good evening, Nick. Thanks for that introduction. I'm just checking if you can hear me.
Yeah, all good, Daniel.
Thank you very much. And Gary, thanks for giving MISA Africa the opportunity to tell us, to you and your members, a bit about MISA Africa, where we come from, what we stand for, and what we do. I just want to confirm that you can all see the slide deck.
Yes, I can see you on your slide deck.
Excellent.
Victor Mundo.
Fantastic. That's very good. So, as Nick said, I'm Daniel Spies. I'm the chairman of MISA Africa, and you'll see my email underneath there in case you have any questions afterwards. We will also have a Q&A session at the end, time permitting, and you're welcome to ask any questions you may have to myself and my associates who are also present here tonight. So very briefly, MISA Africa, who are we? Where do we come from? What do we do? We are a volunteer industry association with headquarters in South Africa, very much like SAIMM. Our goal is to support the industrial and manufacturing user community. That means end users, systems integrators, technology providers, academics, and so on. The areas that we cover span a number of fields, all related to manufacturing, including all the manufacturing industries that you may know, mining industries. We already have several members from the mining community that are members of MISA Africa and have gained benefit therefrom. Process industries, oil and gas, automotive industries, food and beverage, and a number of others. Our goal very simply is to be the one-stop source for expert knowledge on smart manufacturing, but not just to have the knowledge. We want to share this knowledge. That is knowledge that we have built up theoretically, knowledge that have been built up the very hard way through practical experience, and we want to share it with our members and our partners in order to help you to be successful in your businesses. That's what MISA Africa is about. We are the African regional chapter, in essence, if you like, of MISA International, which is, if you like, our parent brother company. They started up a while ago. They are a worldwide non-for-profit company doing the same things that we espouse. Our vision is to improve the business results and enterprise operational management through the effective application of technology and best practices. And as I said, our mission is to be the one-stop source for expert knowledge on smart manufacturing and to exchange our ideas, experience, and knowledge with everybody who is a part of our community. How did we start? We're relatively new. I know that the SIIMM, I believe somewhere, Gary, somebody told me you're 125 or 27 years old, which is really quite fantastic. We are quite young in that regard. We started in 2009 as a special interest group in South Africa of MISA International. In the old days, our focus was traditionally on manufacturing execution systems, MES as it's affectionately called, which focused on real-time plant management, control, and process optimization. I need to explain that in those days, which is sort of the late 90s and the early 2000s, MES was kind of a weird religion in terms of computing and business management science. And many of the people who worked in that field at the time were considered to be propeller heads or rocket scientists, guys with long hair wearing safety boots, not necessarily people who were sitting in boardrooms. Very clever people nonetheless, and they had to deal with quite complicated systems that came about due to the many advancements made in the computing industries, like the personal computer, real-time software platforms that were never available before, and that's what they focused on. From there, we moved into basically plant management and real-time management to a focus on manufacturing operations management, which covered the space between, if you like, the machines and automation in the plant and the guys at head office running the financial systems like SAP and others and the HR systems. And that filled the space giving business intelligence information about what's happening at the plant and what was going on. I distinctly remember one of our managing directors in an international company I was working for. Every Monday morning, he demanded the facts from each one of his plants. Each one of the 20 plants had to send the facts on a Monday morning before 8 o'clock, before the management meeting, explaining exactly how many tons they made to target, how many did they make of this product and that product. Today, those days are gone. We're not living on the facts anymore. We've certainly learned a lot, and that's where manufacturing operations management came about. The smart manufacturing in those days focused on really lean manufacturing, which means doing things better and using less resources, doing things faster with less, optimizing things, efficiency, and those things are still important to this day, but they are just part of the bigger picture that MISA is involved in now. In 2016, MISA Africa was incorporated as an autonomous, not-for-profit corporation. We'd grown up and were able to leave the hands of our parent company, and we were self-independent. financial organization with its own management structures. And that happened 5 years ago. Today, our focus is now on industrial operations management, still smart manufacturing, but enterprise holistically applied, not just one plant, many plants, very often not just one country, many countries, industrial supply chain optimization, and also, we can't ignore this, enterprise digital transformation is taking the way forward. A little bit about MISA Africa, who we are and how do we operate. This may be very similar to you guys. We have a board of directors and we have C-level officers, those being my colleagues on the call today. We are the chairman, the vice chairman, and the CFO, effectively, of MISA Africa. The C-level officers get elected by the executive committee, who in turn gets elected by the MISA Africa members. The executive committee comprises many long-serving members, including our excellent and good colleague Nick Stead, who did the introduction earlier this evening. And we have various subcommittees. We have a business development subcommittee, we have an education subcommittee, we have a strategy subcommittee, and we have a marketing and events committee. And that's last but not least, if it were not for the marketing and events subcommittee, this event tonight may not have happened because they were very instrumental in organizing this. What they do for our members, every month we have a regular webinar and other events that members are welcome to attend. And at the end of the year, as you may have seen on the slides that flighted earlier on, we also have an annual conference, which is an excellent conference. We have top-class speakers, both locally and international, and we've had very good feedback on that conference. And we urge any and all of the people on the call tonight, you're most welcome to attend any of these events in future. Then, of course, we come to our MISA Africa members, who is really the lifeline and the blood of our organization. As we say, they are the end users, technology suppliers, system integrators, solution providers, academics, educators, industrial journalists, if one call them like that. And we are quite unique in that we provide not only a one-stop knowledge sharing shop for expertise, but also a one-stop forum for members to integrate, share knowledge, and network with each other. There are already many mining people part of MISA Africa, and some of our mining people have done amazing things with the skills that they have gained from MISA Africa. They have built world-class, enviable sort of systems using the right standards, the right architectures, and the right frameworks that are available. And also with the expertise gained from people who have failed before or have learned the hard way. In addition to that, we have some very special industry affiliates and partners, and we sincerely hoping that SAIMM will be one of them in future. But I would just like to mention two in particular. The one being, of course, MSA International, effectively our big brother company. They're based in the United States of America originally. They started about just short of 30 years ago. They started when there was very little in the way of standards and things and common systems and integration in the plant automation world, and more in particular the world that had to work with that world to integrate with the business management systems. Their goals are very much the same as ours. They have done an immense amount of work and have a vast scientific library of empirical research on projects and technology and expertise and frameworks and architectures on how to do these things. They also supply a world-class education service in which members can get accredited with in order to appraise himself of the intricacies of manufacturing execution systems, and also later the management operations management methods, and finally the industrial supply chain aspects. In South Africa and part of MISA Africa here, we have a number of members who are actually accredited as world-class global educators, and there are not many of those people. And we can take our hat off to that, that in our country, South Africa, we don't have to stand back for anybody in the world. Some of our manufacturing systems here are actually world-class and admired by many. Our educators are right there with them, and our vision and mission are equally admirable to those. One other company I have to mention, which is a close affiliate of ours, is the SAIMC. Without them, MISA South Africa or MISA Africa would probably not have come about initially. They helped us as a kind of a, let's call it, a more wealthy family member with other insights. They came from the automation field and the instrumentation field and instrumentation and control. And in fact, if you walk into any plant and you see all the hardware and stuff working there, whether it's in mining or automotive, the SIMC or one of their members has probably got something to do with it. As I said, MISA Africa, we fit in the space between the SIMC and all the machinery and sort of the more theoretical stuff that MISA International is involved to make it all come together. What I would like to do now is to hand over to my colleague Gerard Greef that Nicholas will introduce. He will be able to tell you more of the intricacies of MISA International and their models and just exactly what they have brought to the table. Thanks very much, Nicholas. I will hand back over to you.
Thank you, Daniel. Thanks for that introduction to the background to MISA and where we've come from and what we're looking at MISA future. But Daniel is the starter, and Gerard Greef here is going to be the main course for what MISA is about. I'll just give you a brief introduction and then let him explain more about how MES and MOMS are being developed over this new phase of integration of things like supply chain and other parts of the business that originally were just silos. So Gerard Greef is the divisional manager, process management and control at Iritron. It's a project design, management and integration services company with more than 100 employees. Iritron focuses on everything a processing or manufacturing business needs for IT and OT integration. Gerard is passionate about MES MOM. He has published various articles about MES and MOM systems in trade publications, a chapter in the MOM Chronicles, ISO 95 Best Practices book 3.0, and a book, Practical E-Manufacturing and Supply Chain Management. Gerard has also co-authored 3 MISA white papers on the concept and management of the time in state metric. He has also collaborated with other international MISA experts on building 2 of the 9 MISA training courses that are available internationally. Gerard has the unofficial title of Mr. MISA. Well, that's how I think of him, and I think some of my colleagues, as he is one of the few certified African trainers of the MISA Global Education Program. So with that introduction, over to you, Gerard.
Well, thanks, Nick, for that great introduction. Really appreciate that. Just a quick one to add to what Daniel said. You know, we always have a prize at our conference at the end of the year for the best user case study. And typically we, in the last few years, sent somebody to Spain to attend a conference there. So that's always a carrot that they hold out for our presenters. And then just to link into MISA International, there's about 4,000 artifacts in their resource library that includes white papers, presentations, blogs, guidebooks, best practice, etc. So that is why, you know, I love MISA, is the peer-to-peer communication that's enabled and the networking capability or availability to talk to people that's already struggled through something that I may be struggling with at the moment. So what are we going to discuss? We're going to look at where MES or manufacturing execution systems fit into the organization. We are going to look at how the MISA model of what MES, MOM, manufacturing operations management, or like Daniel said, industrial operations management, where does that fit into the organization? How has it evolved over time? Then we're going to look at some of the standards that MISA helps to develop, and that MISA subscribes to and influence vendors to adopt. And yeah, then we'll do a little bit of a conclusion. So where does, sorry, my screen does not want to, yeah, there we go. All right, so where does MES fit in? So you can see that if we look at this globe, you can see the horizontal axis is your value chain domain. So that goes from your suppliers, getting your raw material, your supplier relationship management people, your scheduling people, and then going through to your transport management, your CRM, your customer relationship management. So that basically looks at the value chain of the product through your facilities. Your vertical axis is your enterprise domain. That's right at the top. You have your business intelligence, you have your enterprise resource planning systems, you have your financial systems, and all of those actually need data from your facilities or your plants or your manufacturing enterprise. Then you get manufacturing. Under that, you have your controlled process management and your automation systems that provide information that, currently in most companies we get to is actually being manipulated and, well, collated and manipulated by MES, but not manufacturing execution systems, Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, right? So MES, or manufacturing execution system, has as a focus in a lot of times to basically replace your Microsoft Excel spreadsheet system that actually runs manufacturing in the facility. And whether that is in a mine or in a manufacturing facility, everybody uses Microsoft Excel spreadsheet. And the domain that basically goes into your screen is your lifecycle domain. So that's your product lifecycle management from design to product lifecycle management in support, or you can also look at it as plant lifecycle management. So from you design your process, you run your process, and then you support your process. Now, MES.
Hello.
Yes.
Can
yes.
I just ask you to? I'm seeing not in presentation mode. I'm seeing your.
Are you seeing this one?
I don't know if anybody else is, and I'm one screen behind on your agenda. Can you maybe just check whether that's working?
Okay. Sorry. Am I?
Well, you're still. To me, I've still got the agenda screen. I can see the preview on the left-hand side in the presentation build.
Yeah, I confirm that, Nick. I'm not getting a full screen, and we're on the.
That's it. Great. Okay. So F5 maybe, or the whatever you like to do.
Let's see. You're still seeing this? Okay. So you're seeing this. I apologize.
No problem.
Let me just see if I move this one there. What are you guys seeing now?
Well, we're seeing the preview, so it's not full screen, but we're having. But at least we're on the slide that you're talking to. But if you can maybe go onto your.
Right. So sorry. Let me just stop sharing. I'll share again. I really apologize for that.
No problem.
I will do the.
Your dual screening, I suppose. That's the.
Yeah, I think that is the actual problem. Let's try sharing this one. Are you still seeing the same thing?
Yeah,
What are you seeing now?
Yeah, click that button. I think that should do the trick then. There we go. Yeah, that's it.
Are we at the right? Okay.
Yeah, we're
right.
on collaborative manufacturing management systems. Yep, that's great.
Yeah, right. Sorry about that. Okay, so basically if we look at the globe, we've got the 3 axes, as I explained, with MES living right in the middle. Now, MISA defined MES, or Manufacturing Execution Systems, in 1990, right? And they defined it as a 11-module honeycomb. Okay, so looking at operations or detailed sequencing, dispatching production units, product tracking, genealogy, labor management, quality management, maintenance management, data collection and acquisition, process management, performance analysis, and document control. Right, so they said in 1990, to manage your manufacturing facility or your mining facility, this is what you need to do. Now, I know in the mines specifically, product tracking genealogy is not necessarily a big thing. However, mass balance is, and if you do not track the quantity of material through the process, you cannot actually get to a mass balance. So I know mass balancing is an important part, which is one of the end results of good tracking, right? So 1990, that's what they said. Then they went on in 2004, and they say, well, we actually have to look at it a little bit more broadly, because those 11 modules, even though they describe manufacturing, they do not live in an island. They combine with other things. So we need to look at customer focused CRM, service management, where we basically need to integrate to. We need to integrate into our financial performance focused ERP, business intelligence, etc. We need to look at our product design, our CAD, CAM systems. We need to look at our logistics. When do we need to schedule trucks to do what, where? Our controls, PLC, DCS systems, our compliance management, document management, ISO, environmental health and safety, quality systems, etc. And then kind of the supply focused procurement, etc. So that was the evolution. 14 years later, they said we actually need to look a little bit wider than where we currently are. Come 2014, they said, well, the 11 modules are still there, which is basically these ones over here. However, they fit into a bigger organization. So in the previous iteration, we had the other parts of the organization it fits into, so the business operations. So we still have the business operations linking into my MES system. However, we have some strategic initiatives in our plants or in our businesses that we need to support with our model. So we have the objectives coming from our strategic initiatives that gets passed down to business operations, gets passed down to our MES MOM systems, and we have iterative communication between these 3 layers to ensure that we are actually achieving our company objectives. Right? So linking what's happening in the plant with the broader objective of the organization, so that we do not focus on optimizing one part of our business, sometimes to the detriment of other parts of the business. All right, because you can increase the throughput through a specific part of your plant and choke the rest of the process downstream of your plant, right? And we don't want to do that. We want to make sure that if we increase in one area, downstream processes are able to accommodate the increase in production. Right, so one of the standards that MISA subscribed to is called the ISA 95, Enterprise Control System Integration Standard. It was originally conceived at the Purdue University in the US that looked at the architecture and put together the different levels. So when we talk about level 0, we're talking about the production process. When we talk about level 1 and 2, we are basically talking about our PLC SCADA layer. On level 3, we talk about manufacturing operations management. And this is kind of where MES currently in most places rule the world. Microsoft Excel spreadsheet, that lives smack dab in here. And people are implementing systems to replace Microsoft Excel spreadsheet combined with a lot of paper systems. And then at the top, most companies have a business planning and logistics system or a ERP system like your SAPs, your Oracles, your JD Edwards, your Bonds. Most that can afford them have them, right? And because everybody wants to manage their finances better, right? So MISA is interested in this, basically in this level 3, and the integration into level 4. Okay. So like I said, business logistics systems, your ERP, your manufacturing operations management systems, your control systems, and then your intelligent devices at the lower level. What is in this level 3 environment? So MISA defines 8 activities that happen in this environment. Okay, so you have information from your products, your product definition or your recipe coming down from your ERP system. You have your production capability from your plant going into your ERP system to tell the ERP how much you can produce. You have your production schedule coming down from the ERP to tell you what to produce, and then your production performance gets fed back into the ERP to say, how did you perform against your schedule, right? So those are the 4 data interchange areas between level 3 and level 4. Within these 4 areas, there's 8 activities that happen, right? We look at your production resource management. So what do you need to make a product? So you have your production capability. What do you need to make that product in terms of materials, resources, and equipment? Materials, equipment, and people. Your product definition, what are you making to what specification? Right, coming from your production planning at your ERP level, you have your detailed production scheduling. So what needs to be made when? The signals get sent down to somebody, which is your production dispatching, to say, make this specific component, this specific material, and then that is executed by somebody in your control room. You are then collecting your production data, you're tracking the production through the process as you're collating the data, and you do your performance analysis. So we were supposed to make 100 products from 200 components. We made 98 products, but we used 206 components, right? So your schedule versus actual performance. That information then gets sent back into your ERP system. Now, I talked about product and production, but the same thing applies to maintenance, quality, and inventory, right? So what maintenance resources do you have available? What is the specific piece of equipment that needs to be maintained? What's the schedule? When does it need to be maintained? How do we inform somebody to actually go and do the maintenance? How do we record that the maintenance is actually done? How do we measure that against the schedule, right? And how do we track the maintenance request came in at 1 o'clock? It was given to a maintenance technician at 1:10. The maintenance technician only got to the machine at 3 o'clock in the afternoon, even though it's only 100 meters away, right? So how do we track that? Okay, the same with quality. You can think for yourself when we look at sampling plans. You know, when do we sample? How much do we sample? How frequently do we sample? What happens to the sample? How fast does it get tested, etc. Right? The other part is the equipment role model. So what MISA says is, and the ISA 95 standard that MISA helped develop and is still in helping to develop as we go along. It's already got 8 parts defined. I'm just showing a little high level of part 1, which explains the concepts. There's a lot of detail in the background. It basically says that you have an enterprise. An enterprise can have multiple sites. A site can have one or more area. Within an area, you can have a process cell with one or more units under it. If you're running batch processing, you can also, under area, have a production unit with units under it. If it's a continuous process, you can have a production line with work cells if it's a discrete or repetitive process. And then you have some storage zones with storage units if you want to identify your actual inventory movement between your specific storage units. That is extremely helpful if you do work in progress tracking and you have a first in, first out type of operation. So you'll see at the top, we are also looking at ISA 88. Now, ISA 88 fits in here under batch production. The basic layout of the standard is very similar. The reason that I also explain it here is because of the things that happen under the area level, right? So a lot of mining companies is actually modeling their control and automation processes using this type of level of identification. So you have your work center or process cell. You have your work unit. Under a work unit, so you have, for instance, a furnace with 3 silos, and you have heating and cooling on it, right? So that would be a work unit. A equipment module would, for instance, be a silo on a weigh cell, would be an equipment module. You'll have 3 of those, right? And then a control module will be that dispensing mechanism to control the weight dispensed from that specific silo, right? So breaking up and structuring your control system using the ISA 88 naming conventions and hierarchy of building your controls, right? So this is the equipment role module. Why do we do that? So Daniel said initially that MISA is there to help companies do better. And we believe that there's 2 things that you can do with data that would help companies improve, right? So there's a data and information value principle. So the first principle is the value of information is inversely proportional to the time it takes to become actionable. What does that mean? That means that if a piece of equipment breaks down and you know about it 10 seconds later, you can start doing something about it 10 seconds later. If a piece of equipment breaks down and you only know about that tomorrow morning during the morning meeting, it's too late to do anything about it. Therefore, the information, the value of the information is low. It's happened, it's done, can't do anything about it. As opposed to when it happens, I know about it, I can do something about it, right? So that is number 1. The second principle is the value of information is directly proportional to the number of people and systems collaborating. So once again, using the breakdown, if a piece of equipment breaks down, the operator knows about it. The operator can do something about it. If the supervisor knows about it, the supervisor can assist the operator. If the maintenance manager knows about it, he can dispatch a maintenance technician to go and fix, diagnose and fix the machine. If you're in a fast-moving consumer good operation and your customer services representative know that the machine is broken down, they can call the customer and tell the customer, don't send your truck 4 o'clock this afternoon. The machine making your product is broken down. Only send your truck tomorrow morning at 8 o'clock. So you don't have a wasted trip with a lot of wasted overtime. So the second last slide, what does MISA or MAS contribute? It assists in the management and planning and control of your activities within your plant by providing real-time visibility of what's actually going on, right? So not at the SCADA level, but more at the business coordination level. Provides supervisors with real-time decision-making information so that they can react on adverse events. Okay, so management by exception. It connects the plant floor with your ERP and your business systems, and it provides applications that leverage scarce technical resources. In South Africa, we have a skills shortage. We've got baby boomers retiring. Baby boomers retiring is actually, the aging workforce is a global phenomenon, right? So there's people that's been in a job for 20 years, got all the experience, they're retiring, most of the stuff's in the heads. You need to encapsulate that somehow in a system so that newer people or younger people, when they come in, can operate equally well without the actual experience. The same with the real skill shortage. A lot of our skills are now sitting in Europe somewhere, in Australia and Russia, and we don't have experienced people to replace them. So what we do is we bring them all into a central place. So instead of having a boiler specialist and a water purification specialist and a turbine specialist on each one of our power stations, we put all of them in a central location and they look at all the power stations, because we do not have enough of those people. And from a financial perspective, real numbers perspective, what do MAS contribute to companies? You can look at the numbers there: 10 to 40% reduction in maintenance costs, 20 to 50% reduction in time to market, increased forecasting accuracy, cost of quality reduced, cost of inventory holding decreased, increase in productivity, and then a reduction in total machine downtime. That's my story, and I'll hand over back to Nick. I hope you found that interesting.
Thank you so much, Gerard. Yeah, it was great. I think that was a good whistle-stop tour of the MISA portfolio and how things are changing as we move ahead with technology. I just read a remark that Mark Cutifani made from Anglo American when he was at a Canadian mining conference, that 10 years ago or even longer, it was a mining company. Now it's metals and materials, and he was saying that we have to position our mining companies as something that is useful. We've been rather siloed and thinking that we just have to pull the stuff out the ground. And I think he had a very good point, that we have to look at the way we see our companies, and he thinks that it will become a materials solutions company down the track. Anyhow, I think to add to this story that we've heard from Gerard is to understand where we are going with our education and training. And I'm delighted to have Johan Martens, who is going to tell us about what's been happening, particularly with the new qualification that's coming out related to the information technology and operations technology area. So I'll just give you a brief introduction to Johan, and then he can take it away. So Johan started his career as an electrical engineer in the petrochemical industry, and his enthusiasm took him to become the electrical engineer, to the instrumentation manager, and then the IT manager, which actually included the MES function, a compliance manager, the enterprise program management officer manager, and the project manager within finance for the implementation of Sarbanes-Oxley requirements. And then he actually became the MES project manager at Siemens. Johan is the director and CEO of the SAIMC, not-for-profit, as mentioned by our colleagues. And he is also the director and public officer of the MISA Africa organization. Johan is a board member of the Automation Federation, a member of the team appointed by EXA to define the discipline-specific training guidelines for mechatronic technicians, technologists, and engineers. He is also working with the MICT CETA on new accreditation programs that include IoT, robotics, and quality. He's passionate about helping engineers and technologists within our industries to grow and embrace the new world of work involving this IoT and IT conversions. Welcome to Johan, and over to you to give us some insights.
Thank you very much, Nick, and thank you for the opportunity to share some of the stuff that you're busy with.
I can see your screen there.
Fantastic. I'm going to talk a little bit about the education and how that fits in with the MES. We've got problem statements of the industry. Industry spends a lot of time, even years, to get graduates to understand automation. I'm not going to read through everything. I'm going to slowly scroll through it and talk through it. If there are any questions, you can just let me have them. Now, what happens is that in the past, when I was young, it was very possible for people to do their theory at tertiary education, then go into industry, and industry teaches the people everything they need to know. Now, industry will teach what we have done is we've said, okay, let's have a look at a tertiary education institution as students that they get in as raw material, and the products that the graduates that they deliver as products. And what the problem is at the moment is that people are being educated to give them a diploma, and then expected for industry to get them up to speed with all the technology. And we said, okay, no, this is not going to work. We do no longer have people to spare to teach others on technology that they were appointed for. So when a person finishes the tertiary education, they should have the basics under their belt, but they should also have the technology that they will be working with under the belt. So tertiary education, unfortunately, has very little knowledge of how their products are accepted by industry, and then uses examples of one or two high flyers in industry saying our products are acceptable by industry because look at what Gert and Jan has done. But that is not an indication of the normal products that they deliver, because they are not measured by the quality of their products. They don't do quality satisfaction surveys on their industry as to whether their products are accepted or not. They are just being paid one product, get 1 rand. 2 products, get 2 rand. 3 products, get 3 rand from government. So now education also has a problem. They have a very, very low grade material, raw material coming in. And the funding for creating these products are mainly from government to reward institutions, then based on the amount of product they deliver, as I said, and not the suitability to industry. Unfortunately, industry has largely withdrawn from education as far as supporting them with the right equipment, trainer programs, bursaries, etc. And they just rely on teach them the basics. I went to one tertiary education and I said, listen, they have a process department. It's a process management department. I said, listen, do you guys have any process management equipment available, like a MES program or something like that? And they said, no, they had a PLC a couple of years ago, but they no longer use it. So they have actually no idea what process management is all about, but they call themselves process. So this is what normally happens. You have education, product, and then in-house training. And this in-house training at industry is where the problem lies. And the product that comes in for the in-house training is also a problem. So what does South Africa want? And it's not just South Africa, it's all over the world. Well, in the past, you had an electrical engineer, you had a chemical engineer, you had a metallurgical engineer, you had a this engineer, that engineer. But as technology grows, you can no longer have this silo approach of education. You have to have a combination where you combine a lot of things. And now they tell me now they don't actually have time to teach them all the other stuff. But if you have a look at the curriculum, you find out that a lot of the studies that they are doing is teaching them. For instance, in the one case, we found that they give introduction to Word, introduction to PowerPoint, introduction to Excel. Listen, this is if you've got spare time, sure, give that, but that should be done before they reach tertiary education, either in the holiday season before that or some other time. But it cannot take the place of a lot of material that a student has to cover to not just learn the basics, but also be a specialist in their equipment when they leave. And the only thing that industry does, that teaches them the process. They don't have to teach them how to use the equipment. Now, there are two research views at university. The one is publication is sufficient, and the other one is implementation is possible. And unfortunately, it has degraded, especially in South Africa, where publication, as long as they can provide publications that are peer-reviewed, that gives them a certain status as how far this tertiary education falls in the hierarchy of tertiary educations. Whereas in Germany, for instance, education is brought in to assist with the research. Unfortunately, today, most of the research done that you see with the new products coming out lies with the suppliers and not with tertiary education anymore. So, okay, so what are we going to do about this? This is a worldwide thing, as I said, it's not just South Africa. So in America, the Automation Federation was created, and they created an automation competency model. Now, the competency model, if I talk about automation, you can just imagine, you get building automation, banking automation, all these various types of automations. And South Africa does not have all the people at the moment to handle all the various automations and this automation competency model. So there are 130 countries working together, and we are also South Africa is also part of that. Now, in 2018, the Automation Federation board meeting, it was decided to create automation as a separate engineering discipline. And we are part of that. And we decided we cannot handle all of them. So in South Africa, we are going to focus on factory automation, process automation, and mechatronic devices. And all the other versions of automation, we will piggyback on what other countries do and then give our input as the drafts come out. So the qualification framework that came out of the Automation Federation, these are the positions that was defined. And the one that we're looking at MISA is the Enterprise Integration Engineer. Now, currently, there are no people that you cannot go to a tertiary education and study MISA or MOM or anything like that. The people who are in that field are specialists from all over walks of life that studied and became professionals in this enterprise integration. So because EXA came out with this identification of engineering work, we decided we had to do something to get the people who are currently doing work to be able to continue doing it. So we went to the Engineering Council of South Africa and we defined the enterprise integration professional. That practitioner, that is a person that now can register with EXA as soon as the identification of engineering work is formalized, because a lot of the work that some MISA people do actually have an impact on the process, which means that they're doing engineering work according to that definition. So the first phase is now to develop a course content and say, look, this is what industry wants from tertiary education. We want you to make some changes, and these are the changes that we want you to make. Now, the problem with telling tertiary education that you want to change their curriculum, you want them to change their curriculum somewhat, not throw everything out, just make a couple of changes, is that they say you have to provide them with students then, bursaries and so on. So we said, okay, now we have to develop a funding model. And this is the funding model that we created. It's called the Skills Trust Fund, and it consists of 3 independent trustees. These 3 independent trustees, you have to have that in your Skills Trust Fund, so the companies that contribute to this trust fund can get tax benefits from it. And then there's 1 representative with veto rights. And this Skills Trust Fund will be set up, is busy being set up at the moment, together with the Department of Trade, Industry and Competition, so that companies who contribute to this get BBEE points. And the idea of the Skills Trust Fund is to maximize the amount of BEE points that contributors get, and not just get people trained as security guards and so on, just so that they can get the points. So if they contribute to the Skills Trust Fund, they get maximum BEE points, and they also get a tax deduction. Now, how does this work? This is the education, and this is how it works. In the BBEE, you get different categories. Adult basic education and training is what ABET stands for. Then there's category B, bursaries, SAQA qualifications. Category E is unit standard training. Category C is EXA memorandum of incorporation, where you sit with EXA, you say, this is the program, we will put the person through this program, and when they finish, they can register with EXA, and people can also get points for that. And then category F is CPD points, and that is then how that whole funding model will work. Now, if there are any, back to you, Nick, and thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Johan. That was great. I mean, there's an awful lot of work that you have put into that over the last couple of years, if not longer, actually. And I really want to thank you for all the work that you do for the SAIMC, as well as MISA Africa. And I think really now I'm going to hand over to Gary. We've got a couple of questions that have been posed, and I think we have time to meet those questions, or at least talk to them. There's one on education and training, and one about actually using the MES getting out of the spreadsheet conundrum and getting onto MES. And I think really, I just want to say before we get into the Q&A, thanks Gary for enabling us to be part of this. And as Gerard mentioned, don't forget that we are looking for case studies on how technology and the people have enabled better business for our year-end conference. It's an important thing, and that's in the middle of November. We'll more detail soon. Gary, I think I'll pass it over to you now.
Great, and thank you very much, Nick, for doing the introductions, and thank you, Johan, Gerard, and Daniel for the great presentations. I think this is the start of a lot more collaborations, and it will be interesting to hear if there's any questions around how, or any advice from any of the people online around how we could actually collaborate further, you know, around lessons learned, comparing architectures around R4 and seeing best of breed MOM into MES into control systems. So we've got a couple of questions. What I wanted to also say is I joined MISA myself about 5 years ago. Coming out of the mining industry, I wanted to know what was manufacturing doing that we could learn from. And I was very, very surprised. And that's where my MISA association started many, many years ago. So we're going to open up for questions. The first question we've got here is from an anonymous attendee, who's obviously a mining engineer. I'll read out the question, and then I think it's probably going to be passed on to Johan to answer this one. I remember my first year in a class of 400 prospective mining engineers. Sounds like my first year as well. Only to graduate with a class of 90 graduates at the end of fourth year. Is there a way that universities use to limit the number of final year students? Is industry supplying sufficient information to universities or Department of Education to determine how many of a certain kind of discipline is required? And is there sufficient research regarding this, specifically for engineering, as it is one discipline that is said to be scarce? A very, very good question. I don't know, Johan, if you're able to answer this for us.
Yes, thank you for the question. The first part of the question, do universities limit the number of final year students? No, they actually don't, because they are remunerated by the amount of final year students that finish. So the more they can push through, the more money they get. Now, the second part of that question is supplying sufficient information to universities. Now, there has been a breakdown between universities and industry. Universities have created work groups, but what happened over the years is that industry sent them the HR managers and told them, we want 3 of this, we want 2 of that, we want 1 of this. And eventually universities started producing products that industry no longer wants. So, and a case in point is in the technician training, you need P1 and P2, but practical before you can qualify. So you need that practical experience. But because industry really does not have time to train people who are not sufficiently trained, technicians are now being taught maths and science in the place of P1, so that they just have to do P2. And this is where, this is our big gripe, that universities are doing whatever they can to get products through. And if we come and tell them, listen, we want you to change the program, some of them have the attitude of, I was here before you came and I'll be here after you've left. But some others are very keen to work with industry, and we are fortunate that we've got about 7 universities working, tertiary educations, I must say, working with us in this whole thing. We're not going to ask them to change all their curriculum in one shot. We will change it slowly, because they still have to adhere to the Sydney Accord, the Dublin Accord, and the Washington Accord. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Johan. Apparently my voice is a little bit muffled, so apologies for that. I'm going to do my best here to hear, so that you guys can hear me. We've got another question here from George Dallas, and I know it's been answered online, but I'm actually just going to read it out and then ask Gerard to maybe just elaborate on this, on the answer. And really the question is, can you quote a case study where a company has transitioned from the tyranny of spreadsheets? And that's crazy. I see this all around the world. It doesn't matter how advanced the plant or a process is, I see spreadsheets, to the benefits of a fit-for-purpose ERP system. Gerard, could I transfer that to you to give a little bit of an answer? And I know you've typed it, but just for the broader audience.
Yeah, sure. So, like I put down in my answer, I think maybe we need to define a fit-for-purpose ERP system. So, ERP system is your business management system. That is typically where your finances is handled, your purchasing and your product sales. Those are all handled in your ERP system, and they have a number of different ones across the world. That they try to panel beat to fit a company. So if that is the actual question, then I've not seen many of those where, the ERP systems implemented in companies and removing some Excel spreadsheets, definitely. But I've not seen an ERP system that's been brought down into plant level to replace Excel spreadsheets in the actual plant, right? And that's where MES basically comes in, or manufacturing operations management systems, is to replace the MES or the Excel spreadsheets in the plant or at plant level under the ERP. Because what happens is people collect the information either on paper, they type it into Excel spreadsheet, and then that information then gets sent to somebody that actually then types it into the ERP system. Right. So if the question was ERP specific, I've not a lot of case studies like that. If the question is Excel spreadsheets removal on the plant, lots of those in the mining environment. I don't know if there's anybody here that's from that's ex-Lonmin, right? But they developed a whole metal accounting system over a number of years that removed all the Excel spreadsheets. Now, the buy-in is in most cases where the rubber hits the road, and the only way that they could get it to actually work properly was the technical director of the mine of Lonmin saying, I don't care what your Excel spreadsheet says, right? So, yes, I understand there's an instrument that's inaccurate. So go fix the instrument. Don't tell me my system is wrong and your Excel spreadsheet is more accurate, right? I don't care. Your bonus does not depend on what your Excel spreadsheet says. Your bonus depends on what the system says. So if you know something is influencing the system to be inaccurate, fix the system, right? And it did take them a while. It was not an overnight thing, but they actually managed to remove most of the Excel spreadsheets out of the plant. And I say most because you still have your ad hoc root cause analysis, you still have your ad hoc simulations that you need to do. But for the most part, operationally, they do not use Excel spreadsheet anymore.
Sorry, I'm on mute. Thank you very much, Carol, for that answer. I've got another question here, which is going to be for Johan. It's a question from Cynthia, and it's actually in two parts. The industry today, in my opinion, lacks experts in their fields. Most of us that are available are approaching retirement. Yeah, it's almost great. How is industry assisting to share their skills to young professionals, or rather to encourage young professionals to consider specializing, especially in mining engineering? Johan, if you wouldn't mind.
Yes, like Gerard said, the first part of the question is the information that's getting lost because people are leaving the industry. A lot of that expertise can be built into MES system. But the second part of that is we as industry have to start communicating with tertiary education. Just to give you an example, when we spoke to this university about process engineering, we said, listen, you cannot do process engineering without having the equipment. And there are companies that are prepared to provide their MES system to them so that they can play with it and get to learn it and so on. But we as industry have to give them the latest and greatest technology together with train-the-trainer programs in order to assist those tertiary education to get online and teach people the correct stuff. Now, we must not get discouraged by lecturers that are going to retire next year or the year after that, and they're not interested in all this new technology. We must push and push until we can get the 1 or 2 or 3 tertiary education institutions that wants to listen to us, that are eager to listen, and there are a lot of them that are coming up, new people that just entered education as trainers, and they are eager to implement the latest and greatest stuff. But the second one, the third part of that is how we consider encourage young professionals. I want to introduce you to a program that the National Science and Technology Forum has put on. And I'm just going to share my screen quickly. It's called the Stimulator. And this is where people can now, can you see the Stimulator screen?
Not yet, Johan.
Not yet.
Tell me when you can see it. Okay, I forgot to,
Here we go.
to press.
Here we go.
Okay.
There we go, got it.
We as MES and mining engineers and civil engineers and electrical engineers can all contribute to the Stimulator so that a person can go here and let's press on hospital. I'm just going to pick one out. I don't know what's behind that. But if you click on that, it opens up a program and it gives you some information. And then you can click on that and it gives you more information. And so you can carry on clicking down until you get to the National Science and Technology Forum really wants the Stimulator program to work, and it's a non-profit company. So this means that if we contribute to that, we really help the youngsters to see what's going on in our industry. Currently, unfortunately, they didn't want to take SpaceX's Wi-Fi to all the remote areas of our country. So what the National Science and Technology Forum is doing is, as this website develops, they putting it on USB sticks and giving it to teachers to show their students in the remote areas. So this is really worth considering, and see if you want to invest in that platform. Thank you.
Sorry, can I maybe also
Yes.
kind of
Go ahead,
attempt as part of the answer there. You know, one of the struggles that we're having is the skills I'm talking about replacing is that guy that's worked in the mill for 20 years, that walks down the bank of mills, stops, tells the guy walking with him, just write down mill 12 is running to lean, and then continues on his rounds and stops, listens to the mill, this one is running to reach. And when they go back to the control room, they say increase this feed to this mill by so much and decrease the feed to that mill by so much, by listening to the sound that the mill makes. Now, you cannot teach that to anybody. The only thing that gives you that is actual experience, repetitive experience, linking kind of cause effect, correlating sound with what's happening in the plant over a period of time. The problem that we're sitting with is that, unfortunately, across the world, right, we have a generation that is after instant gratification. I do not want to spend 20 years knowing how to do that. I want to be in a job for 2 years and then move on to the next one, right, and become a manager, right? So I think the people that will be successful the young people that will be successful in any job in industry are those people that really want to do something, that has a passion for it and sticks with it for longer than 2 years.
Great, thank you very much, Gerard. There aren't any more questions through here. I've actually got a question from my own personal experience and having had the privilege of working on 2 greenfields, brand new operations that were completely digital with all the latest advanced process control and all of that. And one of the biggest challenges that I picked up was this integration of the sort of IT skills, which are sort of the young up and coming network, and they talk a language that is very IT, and the old control and instrumentation world that has now become OT. And these 2 worlds actually speak a very different language, and they don't each understand each other's world. And we sat with issues like, you know, domain controllers sitting on the wrong side of the firewall, and IP address conflicts and all of that. What is, and I don't know if this question is for Jan or Gerard, what is MISA's views on this, and are you picking up anything, similar things in the manufacturing space?
Definitely a huge problem in the manufacturing space. And one of the reasons for instance, the ISA 95 standard is to overcome that specific issue. Now, if you talk technical IT, like domain names, IPs, etc., it's a question of having the IT people understand why certain things do not work on a control network, right? Why you cannot just, you know, have a blanket antivirus that basically kind of stops, you know, kind of closes a program, runs the antivirus, because then nothing can communicate with it, can't communicate back. So valves stay open that should go closed, and valves closed that should stay open, right? So that's the one part. The other part, however, is, I think, the more difficult part, and that is the naming convention, right? So when you talk about integration between systems, you know, you can use, I don't know, Morse code, right? But if we do not, you know, if we count the clicks different, right, or 3 clicks means S to me, but it means P to you, we won't be able to communicate. So what you call things, so that semantics are 95% of the problem, and the mechanism or protocol is just 5% of the problem, right? And that's where there's always this mismatch between the OT environment and the IT environment, because in the IT environment, you know, you take all of these things and you call that's one thing. However, at the bottom layer, you have multiple things making up that one thing that the ERP is interested in.
Thanks, Gerard, for that. We haven't got any more questions, and I'm very conscious of time now. We've run over time, and I just want to thank everybody that's still online. Please reach out to us at SIMM or MISA. You've got a few mail addresses there if you want to make contact. We will have further collaborations regarding MISA and SIMM and transfer knowledge between them. I see Nick is waving at me, so I'm going to let Nick quickly talk.
Okay, I just wanted to mention that based on what we've been chatting about, and one of the questions that came up, and well, particularly Gerard's answer about data, and, you know, is it right or wrong, Excel or through the system? Just for a matter of interest, our next webinar next month in June, on June the 24th, is about data reconciliation. The buck stops here. And it's by a company that does data reconciliation, and they're using a Canadian ArcelorMittal case study as part of their talk. So it will be a bit of an introduction to what is data reconciliation. I just really wanted to mention that because I think it is, we have loads of data now, but is it good? Is it the job? Do the right people know what it's doing? So just, I just wanted to put that in before we closed up. Thanks.
Yeah, no, thank you for that, Nick. And I mean, I appeal to everyone to please join MISA. I mean, I've been coming to your conferences and webinars for the last few years, and I've learned a lot myself around architecture and all of that. So it's been great. Again, I just want to thank all our speakers. I mean, Nick, thank you for being MC. Gerard, for all your insights. I think they call you, from what I understand, they call you Mr. MISA. So thank you for giving us your wisdom. Daniel, thank you very much. I'm looking forward to further interactions with MISA. And again, Johan, I think there's a lot of discussion around our young professional development. We've got lots of engineers in this country that haven't actually got jobs, that are sitting unemployed. It's actually crazy. So yeah, I would like to thank them. I'd just like to thank everyone that attended. Thank Jane from MISA for coordinating all of this. It must be a little bit like herding cats sometimes, Jane. So thank you very much for that. And then also for Gugu and the SIMM and some of our council members that are online as well. So thank you, everyone, and have a good evening. All right. I don't know if there's any final comments from any of our MISA speakers.
Yes, Gary, this is Daniel speaking. I just wanted to say thank you to you, especially thanks to Jane and to Gugu for putting up with all the fine little detail, making it work. Thanks to Nick for playing MC. He's found a new life since the COVID. You can't believe it. Him and Alberto,
Retired.
I think they're going to start a special TV station called MES for Dummies. But what I wanted to say in conclusion is thank you very much to all your members for attending, your attendees. Thanks to your council members for attending as well. We do look forward to further discussions with yourselves on further collaboration and strengthening the ties. And I would be very disappointed if we do not get at least a couple of papers from your young professionals so that we can send them to Spain and Barcelona to attend an international conference. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you, Daniel, for that. Yeah, there's the challenge to our young professionals. So all of the ones that are still online, there's your challenge. All right. And now my team at the office know that I'll put out the challenge to them. So some of them online still as well. Good. Thank you, everyone. All right. And yeah, have a good evening. All right. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much, Gary.
Bye-bye.
Take care, everybody.
Cheers,
See you on the next one.
Bye-bye, everybody.
Cheers,
Bye. Thanks, guys.